Okay.
Alright. 10,000 to 100,000 species are going extinct throughout the world. Over 1,000 species are being saved because of aquariums and zoos. Now, many people believe that zoos and aquariums should be closed due to quote-unquote animal cruelty. But in my personal opinion, I believe that zoos and aquariums should stay open. And here's why. So many of these places, such as zoos and aquariums like SeaWorld or Wild Animal Park down in San Diego, do a lot of rehabilitation for animals. Along with, it's a great opportunity for so many generations to spark interest in these animals, and it's a great learning opportunity. And like I said earlier, zoos also help a lot of our endangered species. Although it may look and seem like these animals are put in cages, that's not actually the case. So first I'm going to be talking about rehabilitation. Majority of zoos will provide a safe environment and an aid to all wounded animals. So if an animal comes across or is found by anybody along the shorelines or that is in those natural environments and they see a wounded animal, a lot of times they will end up at zoos because zoos have the veterinary experience to take care of them, and along with a safe environment where there's no predators and they're not worried about the animal getting hurt. Rehabilitation is actually one of the main points to places like aquariums and zoos. Majority of their animals are actually released back into the wild, and the only ones that stay in captivity are the ones that are either born in captivity or deemed ineligible to be released back into the environment for their own safety. So some examples are like the Marine Mammal Reserve down on Laguna Beach, and I know this one's less of a zoo-like perspective, but the marine life, it's down on Laguna Beach. I'm sure many of you guys have passed by it while driving down Laguna Canyon. But as you drive down, you'll see a large group of pinnipeds or marine seals in cages. And what that facility does is they tend to take in any sick or injured sea lions, which are called in usually by lifeguards or park rangers, and they'll bring them to that facility and they'll care for them while on display to the public to help generate revenue to keep their facility open. But they'll rehabilitate the animals, and then once they're ready to be released, they have a whole big thing, the news comes down, and you'll see the seals run back into the ocean. SeaWorld also has a very similar program, and I know SeaWorld has been labeled many a times for bad because of the documentary called Blackfish. But SeaWorld does a very similar process. It's just not as highly put into the media because SeaWorld is mainly what it is, which is an aquarium. However, they do a lot of rehabilitation and nobody really talks about that. So next I'm going to be talking about learning for future generations. I don't know about any of you, but I have a major passion for all marine life. And when I was little and I would go to these aquariums and zoos, it would spark my interest of, oh, these animals are endangered, or these animals are so cool, I would love to learn more about them. And as you learn more about them through your years of experience, you have that connection back to when you were a child and you're like, oh my God, that was my favorite animal. So for children, I think it's rather important to see these types of animals up close and in person, because otherwise you would never be able to experience animals such as polar bears or penguins or giraffes or dolphins even in person. And many people don't have the opportunity to go travel the world and see them in their natural habitat. So zoos and aquariums allow a safe place for children to learn about the animal and take an interest in them. As you take an interest in that animal, you tend to find out that, oh, it's endangered, or oh, it's being affected by pollution. And as you grow up, you then kind of put into the mindset that, oh, this animal that I've loved my entire life is suffering because of something that we're doing. I want to do everything I can to help it. For example, I invested into a company that makes bracelets out of ocean plastic, and for every bracelet you buy, 1 pound of ocean plastic is removed, and I don't think I would ever be involved in a company like that if it wasn't for me loving SeaWorld when I was growing up. Endangered species is what the last and third thing that I'll be talking about when it comes to the benefits of aquariums and zoos. Many people see endangered species and go, oh, that's so awful, people are hunting them, they're dying because of pollution, whatever it is, polar bears, melting ice caps. But what people don't realize is that zoos are actually breeding these animals to try and create a safety population. So these safety populations are then grown and bigger. And once they've reached a sustainable amount of that safety population, they'll take a small group of them and they'll put them into a more wild-like exhibit in which they can train them to catch their own food. They can basically rehabilitate them to be able to be released back into the wild so that those numbers become greater as the extinct population in the outside world decreases. Many zoos are known for their rehabilitation and for their saving several species of different animals. There's been a total of 7, I believe, species that have been almost completely wiped out, and the only reason they're still on this planet is due to zoos. Now, many people might say, oh, well, you know, I saw the movie Blackfish, like I mentioned earlier, and, you know, these zoos are taking animals out of the wild and putting them in cages, and they should be roaming free, and animals shouldn't be in cages. And yes, I do agree that animals shouldn't be in cages. And many zoos, like I'm sure many of you have seen the Netflix series Tiger King, animals should not be locked up like that, and privately owned zoos should not exist. I completely agree, because they are breeding animals for entertainment and for the public eye, and they're not doing what zoos are meant to do. But major ones like Aquarium of the Pacific, SeaWorld, for example, Wild Animal Park, all of those ones, they're all major zoos that contribute to animals and do not take animals out of the wild. And for those of you who are saying, well, I saw Blackfish and it did say that SeaWorld took animals out of the wild, I've watched the documentary many a times, and if you notice down in the corner, SeaWorld actually bought the whales off of a smaller zoo called Sea Land that was set up at the end of a pier, and it wasn't all that safe for the animals, and SeaWorld bought it from them. So SeaWorld has never taken any animals out of the wild, and they never will, because they know that's wrong. They do their best to get what they can, and if, you know, other zoos are selling animals, I'm sure they do buy them. But SeaWorld has never taken animals out of the wild along with any major zoo. I cannot speak for privately owned zoos. I haven't done much research on it, but I don't believe they should exist either. Majority of animals in zoos are treated with respect, and I'm not counting for the privately owned zoos, but for all those who have ever gone to the wild animal park, they have a lot of area to roam, and most of those animals are incapacitated or unable to release back into the wild, otherwise it would result in their own death. In conclusion, not all zoos should be allowed, such as privately owned zoos, and I'm sure for any of you who have seen Tiger King, obviously Joe Exotic should not have a license to be able to care for tigers, but major organizations that are doing animals good should be still allowed. The learning experiences and memories that are created for children are life-changing and will forever be carried with them throughout the rest of their lives, and will endorse them to want to help save the animals later and treat those animals with even more respect, since they grew up with them. Not all zoos do harm. Most zoos do a lot of good with their rehabilitation and their care for borderline extinct animals. Thank you.